But the question remains, what is she doing on the campaign trail to help VP Harris? The Harris campaign revealing the former First Lady will take the stage with Vice President Harris for the first time on October 26th in Michigan. That is the first day of early voting there, and she will encourage people to vote early. But is one scheduled stop enough, and why so late? Why has she been absent so far? Here now, Dr. Lauren Wright, NewsNation political contributor and Princeton University political scientist, along with Lindy Lee, Democratic strategist and Harris National Finance Committee member. Good morning to you both. Lindy, got to start with you. Where's she been? What's she been doing after that big speech at the DNC?
Marty, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, though she hasn't been publicly on stage with Kamala Harris yet, she's been doing a lot of behind the scenes work. And she and President Obama have been working tirelessly. He was just in Pittsburgh this past week and encouraging Black voters to come out. And he made a pointed message. He said that women have had Black men's back all their lives, and that he had a point. He had a problem with them not supporting a woman at the top of the ticket. These are things that only President Barack Obama could say with authority and credibility. So Michelle Obama is timing her debut on the campaign trail with maximum impact. It's going to mark the first day of in-person voting.
Lauren, is it too little too late showing up, just a week or so ahead of Election Day?
I don't think so, because this is, fortunately or unfortunately, when many voters start to pay a lot of attention. And so I do think there's the possibility we're, being too hard on the Obamas for how much they're doing. But I will say, I thought that Pittsburgh appearance by former President Obama really hurt Harris's campaign. I mean, for such a thoughtful, arguably one of the most talented politicians we've ever seen to say, Black men are not voting for Harris because of gender, because of sexism, that raised way more headlines negatively than positively. And there's a lot of reasons why Democrats need to be thinking about why their former supporters might be considering Trump this time around. And it might not be gender, it might be the economy, it might be a variety of things. And so it's certainly helpful. Absolutely, you want all your top surrogates out there. But when you say something controversial, that can draw negative headlines too.
What is the Democratic strategy there, Lindy, to try to shore up any undecided Black voters in this election?
Well, I have faith in President Obama and the power of his message. It's not just about shoring up Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, though, these traditionally liberal strongholds. It's about cutting into traditionally conservative areas as well. And President Obama is it's not even just Black voters that he's reaching out to. It's also suburban voters. Those collar counties in which he's incredibly popular. Michelle and Barack Obama are beloved. And where I grew up, I'm from the collar counties of Pennsylvania, and that's Bucks, Chester, Montgomery. The soccer moms in particular there are going to do a lot to determine who's going to be the next occupant of the White House. And the final 100,000 voters in Pennsylvania, chances are they're going to decide who's going to win the White House. The path through Pennsylvania runs straight to the White House.
Yeah, something we're hearing echoed elsewhere. Lauren, would you agree Pennsylvania is going to be the one we're watching election night?
It's absolutely crucial. And I think the fact that it's so close is pretty damning for Harris. I mean, there were some hypothetical polls a few weeks back that showed if she chose Josh Shapiro, maybe she'd be 1 or 2 points ahead. I mean, this stuff really matters. And so when we go back and we're sort of doing the post-mortem of both campaigns, no matter who wins, these crucial decisions, who your running mate is, end up mattering. And I do think she's in a little bit of a trouble in Pennsylvania between the fracking and the running mate decision. I do.
Lindy, anything else up Kamala Harris's sleeve? Any surprises or risks, as we've talked about here on this show, that she may take between now and Election Day?
Well, I just want to respond to my fellow guests here. I don't think this is damning about in terms of Vice President Kamala Harris at all. Trump is the one canceling interviews left and right. Trump is the one who's too cowardly to go on 60 Minutes, the very platform that almost all presidential candidates have taken on. And he just canceled another major interview today. He's been stringing along podcast shows, pretending that he's going to go on, then pulling out in the last minute. And just this past week, the entire world saw him swaying bizarrely on the debate stage. This is someone
and
who's
he's winning. I think he's a weak
unhinged
candidate that maybe has no business doing as well as as he does right now. And I think that points out to some problems Harris has. I think we should be honest about that.
Well, this is someone who, let's not mince any words. He literally terrorized the Capitol and then called it a day of love this past
A
week.
lot of people
That
agree
is,
with you.
this is
I'm
absolutely
one of them.
unconscionable. But we should be
And
doing
he's doing
everything we
really
can to
well.
remind of the American people that he is a convicted felon. Okay, this is someone who was found legally liable for sexual abuse and then defamed his victim. Okay, so
So why
this
is he doing so
and
well? I
every
just
single
think that's a
day,
very fair
every single day
question.
we see that his brain is disintegrating on the debate stage. He's unable to have a coherent thought. He goes for hours on end just rambling incoherently. This is why at the end of the day, hundreds of Republicans, including people who worked for Trump himself, have now endorsed Kamala Harris. He is fundamentally unfit.
All that said, Lindy, Lauren, I think the question you were asking is, we know all this already, but he still has a lot of support. He has his base and even more than that. So why? Why, Lindy?
I think it really comes down to cumulative inflation. Yes, inflation is now under 3%. It's within the range of what the Federal Reserve wants, but the pain of inflation over the last couple of years has caused suffering. We have to acknowledge that. But Kamala Harris has a number of proposals to ease that burden, including the $25,000 down payment for her first-time home buyers, including the $6,000 child tax credit. And also her commitment to build 3 million housing units in her first term. These are all pieces of legislation that would go a long way towards easing that financial burden for Americans. And she understands more so than Trump, obviously. I mean, he grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, has never had to struggle. By some reports, inherited $400 million from his parents and then blew through it all. So she has a plan for this. She understands intimately the needs of the American people.
All right, but my question, Lindy, and what Lauren was asking is, he's still able to get a lot of support despite all the things that he's done. Why is that?
I think it really comes down to the economy, as I just said, because people are dreaming of
The
the
economy,
2019
but people are
economy.
hurting, right? The people have been hurting for the last 4 years, right? That would be the argument, and the criticism is they're having a hard time making ends meet.
Right. And I listed out some of the economic proposals that Kamala Harris will adopt. And Trump doesn't have any of that. He's proposing a tariff on all consumer goods that will jack up prices even more. He's proposing continuation of the multi-trillion-dollar tax cut for billionaires and corporations. Kamala Harris will not raise taxes for anyone working under anyone making less than $400,000. And her wealth tax will not impact anyone who has less than $100 million. But Trump, on the other hand, all these billionaires and oligarchs are pouring in and going all in for Trump because they are salivating for round two of his multi-trillion dollar tax cut for billionaires and corporations.
All right, I am over time, but I do want to give Lauren an opportunity to just respond with a final thought here, Lauren.
Well, those are proposals Harris's campaign has. And certainly if you're a Democrat and you're the vice president for an extraordinarily unpopular administration, you have to have proposals. Of course, she has to have ideas. But many of these ideas are ideas Americans are simply not buying. They're very angry about the economy. They, I think, fairly blame the Biden-Harris administration for that. And so that's just why we're not seeing that translated in the polls.
All right, Dr.
Inflation is a
Lauren
global
Wright, Lindy
phenomenon.
Lee, I'm sorry, I'm out of time. I'm up against a commercial break, but thank you both. We'll have you back. I appreciate the conversation.